"I've been demoted at work," he announced somberly upon arriving home. "What?" I nearly spilled my tea in shock. His company's recent poor performance and impending restructuring had hinted at potential personnel changes, but I never anticipated it hitting Scott directly. Nevertheless, I felt it was crucial to stand by him during such trying times as his wife. "Well, perhaps it's just a stroke of bad luck. Times are tough, and I'm also working, so let's not fret," I replied, trying to maintain a cheerful demeanor. "I'm Catherine, 50 years old, currently employed full-time in the back office. I reside with my husband Scott, who is 2 years my senior, our high school sophomore daughter Julia, and my 72-year-old mother-in-law Ethel. While Ethel and I may not always see eye to eye, our interactions are limited to when I'm home since I work outside, so I've chosen not to dwell on it. To my daughter, I advise, your dad is feeling a bit down because of the demotion, but let's try to carry on as usual around him." However, Scott began to unload his frustrations, and as the saying goes, people often vent their frustrations on those closest to them, those they trust the most. And unfortunately, I became the recipient of it all. The following day, while cleaning the hallway on my day off, he passed by and suddenly remarked, "You've put on weight since we got married, haven't you?" "Huh? Well, I'm 50 after all. Even the gynecology pamphlets mention that women tend to gain weight around menopause. But according to my company's health checkup, I'm not overweight," I retorted. Then came his heartless words, "Forget the health checkup. Your figure is too unsightly. You're just being lazy. If you're overweight, I'm embarrassed to be seen with you and your barrel-like figure." His sudden cruelty left me speechless, and as he added, "ugly," before retreating to his room and locking the door, I was left bewildered. What? What's happening all of a sudden? I pinched my own side in disbelief. I can pinch it. When I squeeze it between my thumb and forefinger, it fits snugly, and I can tell that I've gained more than enough. But why now all of a sudden? It felt like an arrow had pierced me unexpectedly, the shock so intense that I even forgot I was holding the magician wiper in my hand, which then slipped and clattered loudly to the hallway floor. From that day onward, Scott's treatment of me grew increasingly harsh. To exacerbate matters, my mother-in-law seemed to have overheard the argument from that weekend and decided to intervene. Then tensions escalated further. As I ascended the stairs with a basket of laundry intending to hang the clothes, my mother-in-law awaited me not at the bottom, but at the top of the stairs. She would make remarks like, "Oh, how dreadful. If only you weren't so overweight, we could pass each other on the stairs. I wouldn't have to wait here because your obesity restricts the space for both of us." Moreover, during dinner when I served fried chicken, she'd comment, "Isn't this what's contributing to your weight gain?" and promptly remove my plate. Instead, she'd suggest that only the three of us who weren't overweight should eat. My gynecologist had mentioned that after middle age, one tends to either gain weight or lose it, yet my mother-in-law remained on the thin side. She was as slim as a dried-up tree, but I managed to tolerate her incessant taunts. Such annoyances had become routine, so I had grown somewhat accustomed to them. What truly wounded me, however, was my husband's behavior. Since that incident, Scott ceased speaking to me. There were no expressions of gratitude or compliments, not even when I served him breakfast. He simply ate in silence and then left the table. He would enter and exit the bathroom without uttering a word. Though we still shared the bedroom, he would merely turn his back to me and immerse himself in his smartphone. I couldn't bear being treated as though I were invisible. One night, summoning my courage in the bedroom, I asked, "Is there a reason you're ignoring me?" His response was cold. "Not really, but I prefer not to engage with anyone other than humans." He continued, "I don't want to be associated with a family member who is this overweight. If you truly care about me, you'll shed some pounds." What? His words left me disheartened. But it's inevitable with age. You understand that, don't you? Even though I walk 1.2 miles for my commute, I'm doing my best in my own way. Despite my efforts to combat the weight gain that often comes with aging, he coldly turned his back, dismissing my struggles. "If you're not seeing results, then it's as if you're not trying at all. Don't speak to me anymore." And with that, he truly stopped acknowledging my presence. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law persisted in taunting me about my weight. Whenever meat, fruits, or rice were served, she'd question, "Are you permitted to eat that? Do you realize?" Eventually, I found myself restricted to salads and boiled vegetables. Scott remained silent throughout, merely moving his chopsticks without a word. It seemed my marriage was nearing its end. During my spare moments, I began packing my belongings. If this was the treatment I would receive from Scott, perhaps it was best to disappear altogether. When I confided in my daughter, saying I'm considering moving back to my parents' house, she sympathized. I understand. I witnessed Grandma and Dad always picking on you during meals. It's painful to watch. I'll come with you, Mom. We can stay with your parents and I can still attend high school from there. And now, tomorrow marks the beginning of the demotion I've been anticipating, right after the winter break. Scott approached with a smile, suggesting, let's all have a drink, just this once. Tomorrow, life without subordinates begins for him. I pondered whether he found this situation unbearable. However, by now, I had lost the will to play along. Even his forced smile grated on my nerves. Scott piped up, let's enjoy a nightcap with dinner. I'll whip up some wine spritzers. It might have been the first time he had directly addressed me since the demotion announcement. He continued, Julia can have juice, and I'll fix you a wine spritzer too, Catherine. He then placed the prepared drinks at 3 spots on the table. Odd, why the sudden change? As Scott momentarily turned his back to search for the TV remote, I discreetly sniffed the drink he had poured. What? I detected a faint scent, unmistakably familiar. I knew it from my own culinary endeavors. How could he even think to serve me this? I refused to tolerate it any longer. Between my mother-in-law's constant harassment and my husband's neglect, I had reached my limit. The sight of the wine spritzer pushed me over the edge. Scott, could you please grab the camembert cheese from the fridge? It's from the local dairy farm, and it's absolutely delicious. I'm grateful for this family time. Would you mind fetching it? I requested, hoping he would contribute at least this much to our moment of togetherness. As Scott made his way to the fridge, I took the opportunity to swap my drink with the one on the seat to my right. It was Ethel's seat. Upon his return with the cheese, I announced, now that we have our snacks ready, I'll go fetch Julia and mother-in-law, loud enough for them to hear. Dinner's served. The two of them joined us in the dining room and took their seats, creating an appearance of a typical family dinner. Except, I didn't have any meatloaf or cornbread salad. Instead, we had stewed chicken soup, camembert cheese, and wine spritzers. Julia opted for juice. Let's dig in. Julia broke the silence, while Scott and my mother-in-law remained silent. I took a sip of the wine spritzer Scott had prepared, noticing him watching me closely. With a smile, I remarked, yeah, it's quite good. Huh? Scott muttered something under his breath, but I chose to ignore him. Instead, I focused on my salad before taking another sip of the wine spritzer. Suddenly, a stream of red liquid shot out from my mother-in-law's mouth, resembling Godzilla's fiery breath. Wait, Grandma, what happened? My daughter exclaimed, rising from her seat in surprise. Some of the liquid splattered onto her salad. Did you choke? Are you okay? Julia quickly fetched a towel and returned, offering it to my mother-in-law, who wiped her mouth. However, her reaction was one of disbelief. What? What is this? Grandma, your mouth, it looks like spicy cod roe, my daughter observed, growing increasingly concerned. Hey you! He put it in my drink, my mother-in-law shrieked, attempting to grab me, but I coldly brushed her hand away. It wasn't me, Scott made it, I stated firmly. This dismissal, coupled with the revelation of Scott's involvement, seemed to stun her. What? My mother-in-law screamed, her lips still stained with sauce, before turning to glare at Scott, who was visibly trembling. Leaning towards him, I exerted some pressure by resting my hand on the table. You thought you could sneak it into the wine spritzer, didn't you? I could detect it slightly because I've encountered it before. That was a dash of hell, wasn't it? I confronted him sternly. A drop of hell? I picked it up at the food fair in Alabama. It might not be as renowned as death sauce, but with its subtle lime undertones, I found it more appealing for its homely flavor, I explained. That hint of lime was what I detected, indicating he had added a significant amount to the drink. My mother-in-law likely didn't notice due to the wine spritzer's aroma, or perhaps she mistook the lime scent for part of the drink's flavor. Regardless, this was an exceptionally malicious prank, incredibly vicious. Wait, Dad did that? Julia's expression was one of disbelief. I actually intended for Catherine to have it, Scott admitted. You should switch it with yours. Even if my mother-in-law is foaming at the mouth, it's out of line. Just because she realized it was meant for me, she wants to pass it off to me. I'm not touching that dangerous concoction, I asserted in a hushed tone, maintaining pressure on Scott. And then I confronted him. Explain why on earth you thought pulling such a stunt was acceptable, I recounted. You were putting on weight, and spicy food can boost metabolism. So I figured I'd give it a try, Scott reasoned. Pathetic. What a lame excuse, I scoffed. Did he truly believe such an explanation would suffice? It was utterly embarrassing. Under pressure, my husband hesitated, shifting his chair back slightly. I'm not crazy. This is a legitimate reason to support your diet. Here, swap your cup with mine and have a taste. I made it for you, he urged. Closing in, I saw him retreat. What are you implying? As the one who prepared it, you should be the one to sample it. Come on. Rising from my seat, I grabbed the cup containing the fiery concoction meant for my mother-in-law and tossed it in front of my husband. Setting it aside, I closed the gap once more. After ignoring me and treating me like I'm invisible for so long, did you honestly expect me to drink something you claimed to make with a smile out of the blue? Did that not occur to you in your empty head? Isn't it all too childish? Come on, taste it as the one who brewed it. Take some responsibility, I asserted, slamming the table. At the sound, my husband, perhaps hoping to evade further confrontation, rose from his chair and stepped back. Amidst the tense silence, a soft voice broke through. Both my husband and I turned to the source. It was our daughter, Julia. She began to speak, her words sounding strained as if she were forcing them out. Taking out your frustration on Mom, who supports you the most when work gets tough, and subjecting her to repeated cruel treatment. It's like a childish prank. I might not be supposed to say this to my parents, but it's too immature and unbearable to witness. Our daughter stood up, addressing her father directly. Is it wrong to struggle with weight? Mom wakes up early, walks to work, and even packs her own lunch. So it's not fair to say she's not making an effort, she continued, turning to face her grandmother. And you going along with it, taking away Mom's dinner like the fried chicken incident. What Grandma is doing is reminiscent of high school drama. It's embarrassing, she remarked firmly. At these words, a flustered Ethel began to offer a confused excuse. That's not it. I'm just concerned about Julia's mom not gaining any more weight. I want her to feel positively about herself in front of her granddaughter. Besides, Ethel, like Julia, is also struggling with weight. But Julia remained resolute. Compassion is about understanding and supporting the other person. It pained me to see Mom's dinner taken away, especially when she looked so upset. That's not compassion. Mom hasn't had any health issues in her checkups, yet taking away her food is just plain mean. Ethel fell silent, and it appeared Julia was finished addressing her for the time being. She turned her attention back to her father. Mom goes to the gynecologist regularly and stays active, yet Dad just brushes her aside because she's gained a bit of weight. What's up with that? His indifference creates such tension in the house. Can't you see it? Even Colonel Sanders and Aunt Stella from the cookie ads are on the plump side. Ever heard of happy weight? If Mom becomes a lovely grandmother like Aunt Stella as she gets older, I'd be overjoyed. When I have kids and she's a grandma, wouldn't it be wonderful to say, Mom, you've reached some happy weight, and share a laugh? That's my dream. Please don't ruin it for me, she stated matter-of-factly, her gaze icy. Despite their blunt delivery, her words warmed my heart like hot milk with cookies. It was pitiful to witness a father admonished by his own daughter. And one more thing, she addressed her father directly. If you're going to disregard someone because of weight gain from aging, remember, with your receding hairline, you could easily be overlooked yourself. The tension in the room was palpable. Her sharp words left a chill in the air, making the living room feel as cold as ice. It seemed she had said all she needed to. Afterward, she turned to me. That's enough, Mom. It's time to let it go. It'll be better for you. Her words caught me off guard. Let it go? Yes, I should let it go. As I mentioned earlier, my dream is to see you holding my child, saying you've gained some happy weight and sharing a laugh. For my sake, I want you to be happy because that's part of my dream. So please, let it go. Be happy and fulfill my dream. Her words filled my heart with warmth. Each word she spoke brought me such joy that I no longer cared about being ignored by my husband, the fat shaming from my mother-in-law, or the drink incident. Warm tears streamed down my cheeks. Yes, you're right. I agreed, my vision blurred with tears. Come on, Mom, she patted my back gently, urging me forward. Oh, okay, I mumbled as I fetched a document I had been concealing for some time. What? My husband exclaimed, startled. After enduring a month of being ignored, I reached a decision. I have my bags packed. Let's go our separate ways, I declared, presenting the divorce papers with only my name written on them. I just wanted you to lose some weight. If you had slimmed down as I asked, I would have been satisfied. It wasn't until Julia pointed it out that I realized it was venting. But since you didn't shed any pounds, I thought I'd torment you further. I didn't mean for it to. I didn't expect this outcome, my husband confessed, panic creeping into his voice. Those who fail to notice until things escalated are the ones acting incredibly immature, Julia retorted sharply. Living without her beloved granddaughter is no laughing matter for my mother-in-law. Ethel interjected softly, her voice as gentle as stroking a cat. Julia, dear, you wouldn't want to keep living with us, your grandmothers. Julia shut down Ethel's plea with a firm refusal. I decline. I no longer wish to share the same space as people who behave like middle schoolers. Wait, okay, hold on. I understand. I'll taste it, as you suggest. I'll take responsibility as the one who prepared it, Scott conceded, picking up the glass before him and downing its contents in one gulp. Scott, much like Ethel earlier, ejects a stream of the red liquid from his mouth, leaving him with a set of lobster-like lips. There, see. I took responsibility, didn't I, Julia? Scott proudly declares. Julia captures a picture of them both with their lobster lips on her phone and remarks, "You both are so ridiculous. Mom, let's go," before swiftly exiting the living room. Yeah, I'll follow her lead, I agree. Left behind is a dinner table splattered here and there with the wine cocktail mixed with a drop of hell, along with a husband and mother-in-law sporting red lobster lips. I returned to my parents' house with Julia. Upon explaining the situation at home, both my mother and father are enraged and decide to confront Scott and Ethel. They return with the divorce papers, and I ultimately end up getting divorced. My ex-husband Scott's career hits rock bottom, with no notable achievements in his remaining years. It turns out he had a habit of ignoring issues he disliked, even with his subordinates, which ultimately led to his demotion, a revelation I only recently discovered. Meanwhile, my ex-mother-in-law Ethel, who had been difficult and seldom ventured outside, finds herself in a stalemate within their two-person household. Eventually, I received a call saying, "Things wouldn't be so dull if you and Julia were here." This sentiment is underscored by the 17 years that passed since Julia was born and we lived together. Please come back, I'll stop ignoring you. But I won't be returning. Enjoy indulging while you can. Once you have grandchildren, you'll have more physical work to do, my mother jokes with a smile. That's a good point. Today, like every day, I'm walking to work. Along the way, my boss drives by and stops the car, offering, "Need a ride?" "No, thank you, I'm sticking to my diet." "Just get in, Catherine," he insists. "I found a new boyfriend," I announce proudly. Both of us have experienced divorce, which has strengthened our bond and mutual understanding. Dieting is great and all, but being late would pose a problem, he mentions as he drives. "I've never been late before," I retort, puffing up my cheeks defensively. He glances at me and gently pokes my puffed-up cheek with his finger. "Give me the time you saved by riding in a car today for our conversation," he says with a playful smile, ever the chatty boyfriend.